आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाए, आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाएं, तेज हवाओं से लड़ जाए, आओ थोड़ा पागल हो जाए, आओ पैसों को ललचाएं, उससे उल्टी दिशा में जाएं, गर रास्ते में वो मिल जाए उसको करते हैं टाटा बाय, कि पैसे के पीछे तो सब भागते हैं, उसको अपने पीछे भगाएं.
We are delighted to have with us today Ameen Haque.
Story is not what you say, it's what you do. You may forget the formula for gravity, but we all remember a story that there was a guy who sat under a tree and an apple fell. People forget facts, but they remember stories. You may not be able to remember the Archimedes principle, but we all remember a story about the guy who filled water in the bathtub and ran down the street naked, shouting Eureka. So, why do people buy into a political party versus not? What is the narrative? Why do people buy close up versus Pepsodent or Pepsodent versus close up? What informs those choices? Stories are not long or short, they are good or bad. And when they are bad, they feel long. Bahubali, part 1 and part 2 put together is about 7 hours.
Yes.
7 hours. And you're paying with the most expensive commodity in the world, your own time. Nobody's saying to Rajmouli, please come to the point. Who killed Kattappa? Tell me quickly. The most common mistake that people make in storytelling is
Welcome to the Prime Venture Partners podcast. We are delighted to have with us today Ameen Haque, founder of Storywallahs and an amazing storyteller. Welcome to the show, Ameen. How does one become a storywallah? And you've had a very illustrious career from advertising to telling stories to working in the corporate world. Can you talk to us a little bit about both of these?
two separate questions. How does one become a storywala? One doesn't become. We already are. All of us are storytellers. But I guess in a more formal sense, you become a storywala. Anyone, when one recognizes the role that I am not just a doer but also a teller, and accepts that, embraces that, not with reluctance but with joy. Uh, because a lot of us have grown up with this mindset that our work should do the talking. And that was a great mindset to have, and it's still a great mindset to have because work comes first. Our Most of us have grown up in middle class India, and our parents brought us up with these values that your work should do the talking. Then why is it that we need storytelling? I'm sure you've heard of this. Jungle mein mor nacha, kisne dekha? No matter what you're doing, if you're selling a table, you need a story. If you're raising funds, all fundraising is storytelling. All go to market is storytelling. So it's something that's important for everyone. And if we can embrace that, then we become a storywala. As for me, my journey has always been in communications. I studied business administration, worked in sales, went further to study communications formally at MICA, Mudra Institute of Communications in Ahmedabad, worked in advertising, and had an evening stint parallelly going on in theatre. Advertising is one kind of storytelling where you tell stories about brands and try to persuade people to buy products, services. And theatre is another kind of storytelling. Having worked with these mediums for a long time and also in marketing and consulting, I realized that stories are powerful, but we don't leverage story power in our work as much as we can. Often, a lot of people do good work and their work is up there. But when they stand up to talk about their work, the story falls short. And that's not an injustice to the listener. It's first an injustice to their own work. So nothing excites us more than helping people build this muscle and take their storytelling to the authentic level. If your work is here and if your storytelling is here, that's exaggeration. That's also not good. But to bring it to that authenticity, to that level of authenticity, it's important.
So, I mean, I want to just point out one thing that you said is in that moment when you realize, let's say a listener listening to this podcast, saying, oh, okay, I get it. Like, I must tell my story. I must tell it like it is. I must be respectful to myself. How do you go about actually doing this, right? What do you do once you have that moment?
Yeah, there's an old jungle saying in Africa that if the lion doesn't tell its own story, the hunter does. uh, that embracing of story, the role, doesn't come easy. We have these blocks within us that, yeah, I'll do good work. Uh, my customers will bring in more customers. That's a good way to do that. Let me start with what is storytelling, first of all. Storytelling is not vocabulary, it's not articulation, it's not oratory. Number one, your actions speak louder than words. So if you're not living the story, if you're not embodying the story, if you're building a fitness startup, if you're not fit, I'm not going to invest. If you're building a food startup, you're not passionate about food, I'm not going to invest. If you're building an edtech startup and if you're doing this purely as a business, but you don't feel strongly about education, about childhood, about parenting, about curriculum, about pedagogy, I'm not going to invest. That story is not going to rub off. The story rubs off on you when there's some surplus, and that comes from this idea that you live your story. You're not just telling it. There's a story that I love telling. Uh, Ratan Tata, during his younger days, he was a senior guy in the Tata group, and he was going to Nashik for a meeting from Bombay. And he had some of his senior colleagues with him in the car, and they were all going long drive. On the highway, the car breaks down. Everybody is taking an exercise break or stretching their legs. The smokers are taking a smoke break, and soon they are not able to figure out where is Ratan Tata. They go looking for him, then they find him. He is sitting next to the driver, sleeves rolled up, helping the driver fix the car. Now, you can write at the reception of the company in golden letters that we treat people equally. Story is not what you say, it's what you do. So, number one, are we living the story? Number two, the best story about your work cannot be told by you, it can only be told by somebody else. So, are we converting our investors? Are we converting our customers? Are we converting our vendors? Are we converting our employees into storytellers on our behalf? And if you're not, then your story is not going to rub off on people. First, it has to rub off on the people who you are interacting with. And if you create that surplus, they will go and tell the story. If you say, Amit, to me that, I'm a good investor, or I'm a good storyteller, or I'm a good singer, that's not a good story. If 20 people say Amit is a good singer, now that's a fantastic story. But how are you infecting others with enthusiasm for your story? That's the second one. And the third is, good storytellers need to be good listeners. And when I say listeners, I'm not saying listening with an oral sense, but they need to be good observers. They observe gaps in market. They observe customers and what they say and what they don't say, and they convert them into insights. They listen to investors and their reluctance, and they figure out, oh, I need to go back and work on my narrative. It's not speaking to their heart. So they're observers. After doing these three, they still need to go out and tell their story. But these are the foundations. And after that, you embrace storytelling. And if these foundations are in place and then you tell your story, built with authenticity and with great product delivery or service delivery, there's no reason why it won't work. You may, it will find its audience. Every story has its audience, just like every startup has a certain investor and a certain buyer. But it starts with conviction in your own story. Do I believe in it myself? And if you don't believe in it yourself, it's not going to rub off on others. It's like when a chef enjoys making the food in kitchen, and when you eat it 5 kilometers away, when it's delivered to you, it will melt in your mouth, and you will see the love with which it was cooked. Absolutely. Miles away. Yeah. Stories work the same way. Absolutely. uh, the when we say attention spans have decreased, why is it that we say that? uh, it's not attention spans that have reduced, it's the number of it's the data points that have increased in the external world. It's not as if our eyes have gone in millions of years from 2 to 1. It's not as if our ears have gone in millions of years of evolution from 2 to 1. It's the amount of information that is out there which has increased. When I was growing up, there used to be one feature film that would come on Doordarshan in the weekend. There was one Chitrahar. Uh, there were one or two newspapers. Uh, Today, the number of movies that you can consume are limitless. The number of WhatsApp messages that you get in your inbox are limitless. The number of emails, including spam, that you get in your inbox are limitless. So we've had this explosion of information. And in this age, to believe that my work will speak for itself is a myth. Let's assume that you are swimming in this oceans of tons of data that's hitting your WhatsApp, that's hitting your LinkedIn feed, your Insta feed, your Facebook feed, your email, the number of movies that you have to consume, the number of photographs that we have generated today, and the number of holiday memories, the meals that you've had. You don't remember that stuff. Assume I am one of the 30 guys who reports to you, and I'm coming towards you for my performance appraisal. And my mom's voice is ringing at the back of my head. Beta, your work should speak for itself. And I come to you and I expect you to remember what I did over the last 1 year. You don't remember your wife's birthday. And it's not just, or you've forgotten to book the gas cylinder refill. And it's not just you, it's all of us. All of us are swimming in this tons of ocean. So of this data deluge. And therefore, to recognize this is important. That, I have to put that effort in my story. Otherwise, I'm not going to be discovered. My story is just one of those stories. People are not seeking me out. People are not looking for you. People are looking for a solution to their problem. How do you go out and tell them? How do you meet them where they are? That's the essence of marketing, isn't it? That you meet people where they are. Isn't that the essence of fundraising? That you meet investors where they are. They are not going to come to you. So you have to go to them and say, well, I've got a solution for your problem. First, assuming that you're living your story already, right? You're building a fitness startup, and I see that reflected in you, in your staff, in the office design, that everybody takes the steps to the office, not the elevator to the office, etc., etc. Your breaks, your rituals, your routines are designed where people take fitness breaks, etc. So first part, start living your story. Second part, are you infecting others, your customers, your employees, your partners, your investors, with enthusiasm for your story? The best story about your work cannot be told by you, it can only be told by somebody else. So, if it's Prime, are investors telling the story? Are existing startup founders telling the story on your behalf? If you got one customer, is that one customer telling the story and singing on your behalf? And they're not going to sing unless you deliver a surplus in your transaction with them. You can say we are a great place to work. If I have to join your company, I'm going to check Glassdoor. What are people saying anonymously about you? So, am I making people sing on my behalf? Now, how does that happen? That happens when you create a surplus in your relationship. What do I mean by a surplus? Maybe I'll explain through a story. I was in BKC. You're familiar with BKC? You stayed in that area before there was BKC. Uh, there are only two hotels in BKC, inside BKC. There's Sofitel and there is Trident. Now I was staying, my clients put me up. So it's a toss of a coin because both of them benchmark their prices against each other. It's a toss of a coin. It's a flip of a coin. You can stay here or there. My long back, one of my clients booked me at Trident. I have this habit when I'm staying at a place to take my toiletries out of my toiletry bag and spread it out on the sink, in front of the sink on the slab. I had done that. I had gone for a meeting during the day. During the course of the day, the housekeeping guy must have come and moved things around. In the evening, when I come back, there's a letter from the general manager that says, Mr. Haque, we noticed that your shaving foam was getting over. Here's a shaving foam from our side. How much does it cost? Nothing. Almost nothing.
Yeah, absolutely.
How many people do that? Almost no one. Now, who's telling you that story?
You are.
I am. It's not Trident that's saying we have great customer service. They've converted the customer into an ambassador on their behalf. What does it take? It takes a little bit of a surplus. Uh, Most people don't do this. So, to anybody listening in to this podcast right now, here's what I would say. Think about ways to convert your customers into storytellers. You think it's difficult to sell? Well, it is difficult to sell. You know what's more difficult? Collecting a payment. You think it's difficult to collect a payment? There's something even more difficult. You know what it is? Getting a testimonial. And you think getting a testimonial is difficult? There's something even more difficult. Getting a testimonial on video. So if you're selling and if you have created that surplus, you should have no issues getting that testimonial on video. Get that video testimonial. It's
Absolutely.
not enough to sell.
Completely agree. Completely agree. Um, Switching gears a little bit, I know you worked a lot in advertising and with the legendary Mr. Piyush Pandey as well. Can you talk a little bit about just advertising as a medium to both communicate stories and anything you want to say about uh, Mr. Pandey as well? I don't know him. I've only followed him from the outside.
Well, there's a lot that's been said about Mr. Pandey, but let me speak about advertising, which is
Sure.
where I learned persuasion. Uh, One of the first projects that I had to work on when I joined Ogilvy was to work on a bank, advertising for a bank. Now, Amit, if there's a restaurant that opens in your neighborhood, we all want to go and check out the restaurant, don't we? And we want to try out the food. If a bank opens a branch in your neighborhood, you don't go and say, hey, let me open a bank account in this branch. We don't do that.
Of course.
Now, my job was to persuade customers to open bank accounts with the bank. How do you persuade people to open bank accounts with a bank? My first task in advertising was to take an ad out that would persuade customers. Uh, the principles of persuasion are grounded in behavioral economics, and behavioral economics is all about the science of persuasion. So that first campaign got me interested. What would persuade people to open bank accounts with a bank? What can you possibly say in an ad, right? If you were in some other non-democratic country, there are other ways to do that. Khata kholo. But in a democratic country, all you can do is say something and hope people buy into that idea. So, why do people buy into a political party versus not? What is the narrative? Why do people buy close up versus Pepsodent or Pepsodent versus close up? What informs those choices? Why do people buy a home in Prestige and not in Sobha or vice versa? Why do we invest in a certain mutual fund and not? Narratives play a part. And that got me interested in saying, hey, what is the role that narrative is playing? And one of the early books that I read was a book called The Art of Choosing by Sheena Iyengar, and she's got a beautiful TED talk on it. She's dedicated her life's work to understanding how people make choices.
He's also
And
written The Paradox of Choice, right?
yeah, and what's a choice ladder? At what point in a choice ladder do people fall off? And what point in a price ladder do people say, yes, now I'm going to buy because now it's convincing enough for me? I think it's a book that anybody who wants to do GTM should read. How to construct a ladder. So that's been my learning ground and in advertising. Uh, Later, I was lucky. I got to work on a plethora of brands, B2B, B2C. I worked in Mastercard. I worked on the launch of. I was lucky. I worked on the launch of General Motors, and how do you convince people to buy a car? Uh, and in India, they launched not with General Motors, but they launched with Opel, the brand. So how do you introduce a brand to people? Uh, Big ticket projects. Worked on B2B. Worked on large campaigns for IBM, worked on tech brands like Lenovo, including the B2B part, which is people who are buying servers and what are the considerations there. So it helped me understand how people make choices. And this is one of the most important things that we can learn: how people behave, how people learn choices, how people make choices, and that makes you a good storyteller. So that's the listening part, that's the observation part.
Fantastic. No, I two big takeaways for myself, many more. Meet people where they are and figure out how they make choices. I'm curious, what was the first campaign, if you remember, the bank one? What did you guys run with?
Well, interestingly, it was not on savings.
Hmm.
It was not on savings rate.
Okay, or something else.
Otherwise, it's very functional, right?
Yeah, X%, Y%.
Yeah, you are offering a better service rate. Here's an insight, and it was a large foreign bank. They had opened a bank account. Sorry, they had opened a bank branch in a part of the market where traditional businessmen were there. Imagine example would be HSBC opening in Karol Bagh.
Hmm.
Yeah, the money was there, but there was a discomfort, and the discomfort was cultural.
Cultural.
And there was another hierarchy, which was very, a wrong cultural reading of the market. And there's a gendered lens as well here. There were very smart looking English speaking women on the other side of the counter who would speak in language that would be intimidating for you. And you're here, and their incomes, their take home would be 1/50th of the amount that you've come to deposit, but it intimidates me. You're not building comfort. You're not speaking to me in my language. Early lesson in storytelling: meet people where they are. You may have the most aspirational brand, but people are not going to come to you for prestige. They're going to come to you for comfort. And they're going to come to you when you speak their language. And that's what Mr. Piyush Pandey did, since you asked. He spoke people's language.
Fantastic. Fantastic. I don't know if this is you or in general, right, about advertising, that there is this so-called 30-second rule about advertising. And now we want to see if we can infect all the founders who are listening to this, right? So if I'm a founder, how do I leverage or use or apply the 30-second rule of advertising to myself or my company?
Well, here's a simple way to look at it: think a lot, think a lot, think a lot about how you're going to open the story. The opening of the story makes or breaks the story. And here are simple examples for this. Do you read blogs, Amit?
Of course I do.
Well, if the blog's title doesn't draw you in, you won't read the rest of the blog. It all depends on the title.
100%.
It's the title, so that's the opening. If you if that doesn't grab you and invite you to read further, you won't read it. Do you go to conferences?
Yes, I do.
Let's assume you've gone to a conference, like a NASCOM conference or a Zenov conference or a GCC conference, and you're or AI conference, and there are speaker after speaker who are speaking, and you're keen, you're making notes. At some point of time, after three speakers have come and gone, your body wants coffee. But another speaker has just come. What do we do? Here's what we all do: we listen to the opening, and if it's not interesting, we step out. Now, that guy could be presenting amazing insights on the seventh slide, but we are not in the room. The opening makes or breaks the story. So, my interpretation of the 30-second is not just for TVCs, not just for videos, but for every form of storytelling, whether you're speaking, whether it's a deck, whether you're at a conference or you're writing a blog. Think a lot about how you're opening the story. The opening makes or breaks the story.
Fantastic. In fact, there's this lovely movie, right, in Hollywood called Jerry Maguire, where the woman has this quote saying, "You had me at hello." What I'm taking away is, like, you lost me at hello.
Yeah,
If you didn't grab me in the first 30 seconds or the first line or the blog or the title,
yeah.
oops.
Oops. And it's not, I appreciate what you're saying from a 30-second perspective, which is mostly for films or YouTube or Insta. What I'm trying to give you examples through varied examples is that it applies to everything.
Absolutely. No, no. In fact, there are headline analyzers. I
Yeah.
don't write as much as I should, but when I was writing a lot of blogs on LinkedIn, I would run them through headline analyzers and they give you a score just for the headline.
It's a good thing to do because
It's a
here
beautiful thing. I would do it for every blog post that I would write.
speaking of blogs, here's an example. There's somebody who goes and does an analysis of interviews, all interviews conducted, and creates a report. Here are two versions of the report. The reports are exactly the same, only titles are different. This report is titled Analysis of Interview Questions and Candidate Responses. This report is titled Three Things You Should Never Say During an Interview. which one will be read more? It's
Absolutely.
obviously this one.
Yeah.
So crack your opening.
Great. Now let me flip it around. What about the closing? Let's think about a TED talk, right? You've done one, others have, we get invited, whatever. So I have 18 or 20 minutes, let's say, or in a investor pitch, like we're sitting in a boardroom here at Prime Ventures. How important is the closing, and any thoughts on that as well?
Oh, very important. Closing is where you leave people with something they remember you with. Because remember, if you're the first speaker in a conference, your challenge is 20 others are going to come after you. Will people even remember you? And if you're the 15th speaker, your challenge is the audience even alive when you come on? Because they have sat through 14. So, what energy do you bring? Now, speaking specifically of closing, all of us have been told repeat what you and summarize,
Yes.
repeat and summarize. It's not enough. It's not enough. Some people say, close with call to action, a clear call to action or call for action. Has it happened that you've gone for a meeting and you've had a compelling call for action? Something like, here's the returns you will get over 10 years if we follow our investment theses. And people say, hey, let me think about it and come back to you next quarter. Has that happened?
Nope.
Yeah, then you've got a good story. But often it happens that you pitch to someone and the pitch doesn't go through, and they say, "Let me come back," or "Let's do this next quarter." Sometimes it happens because your closing is not strong enough, and we've been told close with a repetition of or a summary of what you've done. Sometimes what builds urgency is to call out what will you lose
Opportunity cost.
by postponing this, or what will you lose but by not joining this train. And we don't do that when we close. I don't see too many people closing with the opportunity cost. So think about the closing. This is only one of the ways to close, but there could
Yes,
be other ways.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, like I could think of a story which gets the reader to or listener to remember you, right? And say,
Yeah.
wait, that I heard from Ameen last week. Let me go do something about that.
Yeah. So very interesting that you said that, Amit. Most people forget facts, but they remember stories. Let me give you some examples. You may forget the formula for gravity, but we all remember a story that there was a guy who sat under a tree and an apple fell. You may not be able to remember the Archimedes principle, but we all remember a story about the guy who filled water in the bathtub and ran down the street naked, shouting Eureka. You may not remember what was the thickness or thinness of MacBook Air. Was it 1.2 centimeters or was it 1.5 centimeters? We don't remember that. But we all remember it was as thin as an envelope that Steve Jobs used during the launch. People forget facts, but they remember stories. And in our pitches, if we can give them something to remember us by, you've done a good job.
Great. I mean, that triggered another thing. What about visual storytelling? Let's say there's no words, there's no audio. We are doing audio, right? We're also doing video, but let's say I just have, and again, maybe it takes you to advertising, maybe it doesn't. Like slide decks, we get death by slide decks, right? And in a VC world, we see 2,000 plus pitches a year. So any thoughts on communicating just visually?
Well, a lot of these, obviously visuals speak louder than words,
Of course.
and a picture speaks more than 1,000 words. So I'm not going to touch upon that because a literal takeaway from there can be use images in your pitch decks. But that's not the kind of conversation we are having here. So let me go a little deeper than that and say, are you able to paint a picture in the listener's mind? Are they able to see when you speak the visual that you had in your mind? Are you able to transport them there? शब्दों के साथ चित्रांकन करना. That's what we say in Hindi. But let me give you an example of that. One of the ways in which you can do that is use this phrase. Imagine a dash where dash. I'm going to repeat that slowly. Imagine a dash where dash. Let me paint a picture for you.
Sure.
Let me give you an example.
Yeah, of
And
course.
I'm going to fall back on my advertising days. Uh, Remember, as a telecom user, what are your pain points? Network is not a good friend. It leaves your site the moment you go into an elevator and it says, I don't like elevators, bye bye. It leaves your site when you go into the basement and network says, bye bye, I don't like basements, I'll see you on the other side. Imagine a world, imagine a dash, imagine a world where network is like your shadow, like a puppy follows a boy. This network follows you wherever you go. Am I able to paint a picture in your mindset?
Absolutely.
I'm not using a visual here, but I am speaking to and I'm creating a visual in your mind. Now, that's a great superpower for a storyteller to have. So, because every entrepreneur is trying to build a world. Vodafone is trying to build a world where network follows you wherever you go. What we are really looking for are for citizens for this world. So think about, I'm building a fintech startup where people can invest not 1,000 rupees in gold, not 100 rupees in gold, but 5 rupees, 10 rupees, micro payments in gold. Now, can I paint a picture of that? Imagine a world where this is how yeah. So imagine a car where dash dash dash. Imagine a hospital where dash dash dash. Let me give an example. Imagine a hospital where the bathrooms are as clean as the path lab, because the bathroom is the moment of truth. Everybody has to go for a urine sample to the bathroom and nobody is paying attention to that moment of truth. So I'm evoking a picture in your mind's eye now. Imagine a hospital where the bathroom is as clean as the path lab. We are building that bathroom. We are building that hospital. Would you like to be a citizen of this world? Well, citizenship is available. Here's our subscription. Would you like to be a citizen of the world where network follows you wherever you go? Well, citizenship is available. Here's our SIM card. Yeah, so every entrepreneur is building a world and is looking for citizens to populate that world. How are you going to help them imagine what that world looks like? That's how you work with images. Now, for doing that, you can actually take a picture
Of course.
or you can paint a picture while speaking to someone.
Or you can evoke your five senses in some way, right?
Yeah, you can
And
evoke the sensorials, you can evoke what is the soundscape of that world? What is the visuals in that world? What happens in that world that doesn't happen today?
yeah,
What happens in that world that doesn't happen today? What kind of people populate that world as different from people in this world? Those people are well off. Those people are healthier as compared to those people have better financial outcomes, or those people have better, those children have better academic outcomes. Imagine a school where the pass percentage, well, percentage are old academic indicators. Uh, Imagine a school where people learn everything by doing, where science is learned not by mugging up, but by doing experiments. Yeah. So, again, are you evoking a picture or not?
absolutely. Fantastic. I mean, as we kind of go towards the end of the podcast, I know you work with a lot of startup founders. I know you probably also invest in some. I want you to take, not by name, but just some traits, some examples, some myths of what founders, early stage particularly, do well and what they don't in this realm of storytelling, visual, kind of emotive, expressions, etc. So maybe a couple of things that you feel that most founders don't do this well, and you would love it if they did.
Well, here's that's a simple one. Thank you. And a beautiful, beautiful question. Most founders tell the story of the product they are building. They don't tell their own story. Who are you? There are lots of people with similar ideas. but can you rescue this idea from imminent failure? And the death rate on ideas is very high. It's your story and your team story that gives me, as an investor, some inkling that you have it in you to go the distance. You have it in you to execute upon the idea. You have it in you to rescue the idea from failure. But you're not telling your story. All you're doing is you're telling a use case, a customer story,
A
or a
feature.
pilot that you're doing, or a differentiated feature. I know that these features will evolve. I know that the pricing will change. I know that your GTM will change. But what's your DNA? Who are you? What excites you about this? What's your skin in the game? If Marie Curie was to come and pitch to me, I wouldn't look at the idea. I would look at the pain point. She lost someone, no? Look at the earliest doctors, all the people who became doctors because they lost people, all the people who were looking for cures for cancer, for malaria, because they lost someone, they had skin in the game. So why are you, aapki kahani kya hai? Why do you want to do this? Yeah, it's a biggest mix. Sorry, it's the biggest miss in startup storytelling, that you're not telling your own story and what it means to you. Number two, you obviously will talk about product pricing, go to market, and the path to profitability. Uh, what you're not telling me is, why have you come to me specifically? Of all the people, why have you come to me? Are you going to everybody who's going to invest in you? Or have you chosen the investor just like the investor is choosing you? And if you can tell me a convincing story that shows me that you've done background research, that you know my portfolio, you know why we made those choices, then I'm going to appreciate you, and I'm going to have a longer conversation with you. You know, in your storytelling, you have to earn the right for the next slide. Earn the right on this slide for the next slide. And the way you will do that is by telling me your story, not just the product story, and by showing that you have interest in my story, the investor story or the customer story. And these are two big misses that I see in startup techs.
I agree with both of them. In fact, many of the meetings that I do, just like we did before this podcast, or like, where did you grow up? What fruits do you like? What do you do? What about your siblings? And they're like, I barely got a 1 hour meeting with you, and you're going to spend 30 minutes on this. And they're like, shall
Yeah.
we, shall we,
Shall we
shall,
go
shall,
into the
shall
slide?
we connect the slides?
Yeah.
Oh, it's okay. I have time. Don't worry. No,
Yeah.
but it's 1 hour. We'll meet again.
Yeah.
Earn the right to the second meeting.
Yeah, time is elastic. We've learned this wrong कि फटाफट जल्दी कहानी सुनाना है. कहानी, stories are not long or short. Of course, a long pitch deck is a long pitch deck, a short pitch deck is a short pitch deck. But I think it's very important to recognize stories are not long or short, they are good or bad. And when they are bad, they feel long. When you saw Sholay and came back, your first reaction was not such a long film. Your first reaction was, oh my God, what did I just see? What an amazing film. Bahubali, part one and part two put together is about 7 hours.
Yes.
7 hours. And you're paying with the most expensive commodity in the world, your own time. And nobody's saying to Rajmouli, the director, please come to the point. Who killed Katappa? Tell me quickly. Nobody's asking because the storyteller has taught you like this. Yeah. So can you get the investor like this? Can you get the customer like this? Number of slides don't matter. The duration doesn't matter if you can hook me like this. So it's a myth that your stories have to be short. Your stories have to be good. And then try to appreciate my scarcity of time by keeping it crisp. But first make it good. Grab me.
That has got to be a powerful conclusion to our podcast. I had many more questions, but I love it, right? It's not about long or short. It's about good and relevant and meeting them where they are. Maybe the absolute last question. Any suggestions on tips, tricks, books, videos, resources? You mentioned Sheila Iyengar's book. Any other things that you think are recommended reading, listening, beyond just observing things around you?
Yeah, there are quite a few resources. I
That
for
ones that
for
you would strongly recommend.
three things I would strongly recommend. Number one, there are a lot of pitch decks out there. Go and study them. Go to Google, sort of type in, 25 great pitch decks, study them. But when you study them, look at them by say, keep this frame in mind. What is it that's working well? What is it that I could change? What is it that I would change if I was to bring yourself, engage with that pitch deck? And what is it that I would remove from here? What is it that I would remove? Editing is very important thing, that makes any story better, and people miss the thing on editing. So look at the pitch decks, study the pitch decks. When anybody studies music, they don't just start playing, they start by listening to the great masters. When you're learning art, you don't just start drawing, you study the works of great masters. So study pitch decks. That's number one. Number two, there are a lot of books out there. So see if you can lay your hands on one or two good books. There's Chip and Dan Heath who've written Made to Stick. Start with that and see, if you're working with a lot of data, then there's a book called Storytelling with Data. That Cole Nussbaumer has written. She used to work at Google and was responsible for data visualization at Google. So that's a good book. But lay your hands on some books. And lastly, so the first one was study pitch decks and engage with them. Second, uh,
Good,
yeah,
good
get some
books.
books.
Good books.
Lastly, practice your story with a good editor. And what I mean by that is don't practice in front of the mirror. Mirror is not going to give you a playback. Practice with real human beings, people who, if you can make them COO, and I'll explain the abbreviation. COO means Chief Objections Officer. Because when you go out into the real world to tell the story, there will be a COO, Chief Objections Officer. In every meeting, there is one who says, nah, nah, we've tried this 6 years ago, it didn't work. And that's not when you think about, oh my God, ab kya bolu? You should have thought about it. So when you practice with a Chief Objections Officer, it helps you anticipate the questions. The most common mistake that people make in storytelling is, or two common mistakes that people make in storytelling is, they all practice what they want to tell. Nobody is practicing for what are they going to ask. Practice for that. Anticipate that. And the second common mistake is, if somebody gives you 30 minutes, people prepare a 30-minute pitch deck. There's no way you will complete the 30-minute pitch deck in 30 minutes. It has never happened. So remember, there are 3 Ds in a story. The D of data. When I say data, it's information. The D of data that you're going to bring in, information that you're going to bring in. The D of decision, which is going to be taken at the end. But in the middle, there's another D, the D of discussion. This is where magic happens. And if you prepare a 30-minute pitch deck for a 30-minute meeting, you're not leaving time for the most magical part, the discussion. This is where magic happens. So I hope this helps you when you're building your narrative.
Fantastic, Ameen. Thank you so much for being on the Prime Venture Partners podcast.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed this conversation. Thanks for the gift of great questions.
Dear listeners, thank you for listening to this episode of the podcast. Subscribe now on your favorite podcast app for free, and you'll be the first one to know when new episodes are available. Just search for Prime Venture Partners podcast in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Castbox, or however you get your podcasts. Then hit subscribe. And if you have enjoyed the show, we would be really grateful if you leave us a review on Apple Podcast. To read the full transcript, find the link in the show notes.